Hey everybody, it's Tim from Linessa Farm Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today. So, stuff to talk about. It is lambing and kidding season. I know some of our friends actually just started having their kid this week. So, it's getting cold outside. It's getting dark early. It's that time of year. It's going to be cold and miserable here in Indiana before we know it. So, I have a cat. His name's Charlie, and those cats that doesn't want to have anything to do with me like 99% of the time. And then somehow he can like sense when I'm getting ready to start my live stream, like comes and tries to climb on me. Rest of the week doesn't want to have anything to me, but for some reason I'm getting ready to start and he decides he's going to try to jump all over me. But so the big thing that I wanted to do today is I just wanted to kind of talk about what we do here on the farm. You know, we make lots and lots of videos where we talk about what we do here on the farm, and we talk about like all these little tips and tricks and things that we do. And today I just want to, there's no way we're going to list, but I kind of sat down for a few hours before the live stream tonight. I thought of a few different things we do that we may have talked about, we may not have talked about, and I just want to share them with you. You know, we kind of have a very close-knit group of us that do the live stream. There's a couple hundred of you, about 300 of you that like watch kind of as a thank you to. I just want to give you some information that I may have given you before, and I also want to help kind of refresh you with some things that we may have talked about, but maybe it's been some really good tips and tricks, but some of them also are kind of buried in our videos. So remember, I told you this many times before, but it bears for legal purposes me to tell you again, I am not a veterinarian. So anything that I tell you, just, you know, you're on your own. So don't come back and try to sue me later. You just took advice that you don't know, and you know you gotta be responsible for your own actions. So with that being said, I hope you have a pen and paper handy, because I think some of this stuff is pretty valuable. If you have questions while I'm talking, to just go ahead and type it in there. I will do my best to answer it, but I just want to kind of start off at the beginning and work our way through this and just talk to you about some that we do here on the say to you. And if you've seen sheep or goats for a while, you know this. And if you've ever talked to my children, if anyone talks to my kid, like, what's the number one rule of raising sheep and goats? My kids will tell you, don't chase the sheep and goats. We waste so much time and so much effort chasing these animals, and you don't need to do it. The reason for that is if you've been doing this for a while, you know that, and these animals are running away from you. If they're all working, they're all spooked, just stop. Go have soda, go hang out for a few minutes and let them calm down, and then go back to it. The more you chase these animals, the more you get them worked up, the more upset you get them, you're not going to catch them. You're going to get hurt. The animal's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get hurt, and it's going to ruin everybody's day, and it's just not fun. So you have to learn to be slow. You have to learn to be deliberate when it comes to these animals. There's other things to consider as well. You know, grabbing a hold of fur, grabbing a hold of wool, grabbing a hold of horns and things like that, it's not always your best option. You know, probably the easiest way to get hold of these animals, honestly, is by grabbing them by the back leg, walking up to them slowly, but surely, getting close behind them, reaching down and grabbing the back leg, holding on to that back leg until you can get your other hand up and around the front of the neck, and go from there. You know, squatting down in front of them like a football player, like you're going to tackle them, and having someone run them towards you is dangerous. It's not going to end well for you. They will go through you. And, while the shepherd's crook and all those other things are valuable tools, nothing works as good as putting down a little bit of feed, walking up behind them, grabbing them by their back leg, and either you grabbing them or having someone else grab them. That is the tried and true method for catching these animals. And the other thing is just familiarity. How much are you around them? How much are they used to you? if you spend 5 minutes a day just walking your pasture, just walking around these animals, at least they're going to be used to seeing you and smelling you, and they're going to know who you are. There's many studies out there that do show, yes, in fact, sheep and goats do actually recognize you. They can recognize your face. They can recognize your scent. They can associate you with danger or not with danger. So something that you're going to want to keep in mind. So that's point number one. Point number two, and I'm not going to list these off 2, 3, 4, 5. We're just going to go through it here. But the next one that I made a point of was CDT every year, 30 days prior to lambing and kidding. If you're a member of the TAC box, you've seen this. I know you've seen it because I've seen it the past few weeks, the past few months. Every once in a while on the TAC box, what do we see? We see someone losing an animal to Clostridium. We see someone losing an animal to tetanus. And you see them pop up on there, and they're like, this animal's laying down. They can't get up. They have stiff joints, whatever. The animal got into a bunch of feed, and they died. It's too easy to treat, and it will catch you eventually. If you are not vaccinating against these, even if you're not a vaccine person, these are like the bare bones minimum. So Clostridium type D, and then tetanus. It is just anytime you're creating a wound on an animal, you need to think tetanus. So I don't care if that's making an incision, giving a shot. Giving a shot's a little overboard, but making an incision, docking tails, giving ear tags, doing things like that. You're opening them up for tetanus. Tetanus is everywhere. So it's really hard to stop. Clostridium is concerned. We worry about the type C when they're little bitties. Once they're a little bit older, we worry about the Clostridium type D. Causes brain lesions. Even if they do survive it, up forever. And so it's just an awful way for them to die, and it's not worth it. So CDT every year, I'm going to give it 30 days prior to lambing or kidding, and that is just to get into their system and to make sure that they're able to give passive immunity to hold them over long enough before we can actually give them a vaccine. So the next one is, and we're just kind of jump all over the place here. Aeromyosin is the next one. So Aeromyosin is what we call a VFD drug. Is a veterinary food directive drug. You have to get a script from your provider for it. Now, for years and years and years, we used to give Aeromyosin crumble to animals, and you could just buy it from the store. Essentially, a tetracycline based feed. Very little bit of this goes a very long way, and it really cleans up ewes and does prior to kidding or lambing against a lot of abortive bacteria that they can get, really nasty stuff that will cause late torsion, and it really has to clean them up. The other thing is, evidence shows that feeding these antibiotics to these animals really helps with feed conversion. It really helps to clean them up. Now, I get it. Aren't wanting to feed antibiotics. I understand that. And so it isn't something that we do, but we always dose our ewes and our does with Aeromyosin prior to that lambing and kidding. So 30 days prior, at least a couple weeks after lambing and kidding, just to get them cleaned up and to make sure that we don't have any unneeded bacteria or anything that's going to cause any problem. Flock. This can be orchestrated and worked out with your veterinarian. You can simply go to your vet and say, hey, I need, and they will write you a script. And then you can go to your local and take that script, and they will give you the crumbles. So I will type that in for you here. So you can look that up online. Now, you should be able to get that from your local feed stores. We do sell that online through Foundation Feed. You would have to send us a copy or have your vet send us a script, and then we can send it to you. A little bit of this goes a very long way. We have 10-gram Aeromyosin crumbles. So to put it in perspective for you, we just had a customer that bought 10 pounds from us. That 10 pounds, to meet the demand of his flock, that 10 pounds will treat 4,000 pounds of feed. So 10 pounds will treat 2 tons. And that's the gram crumble. So a little bit of this goes a long way. We're not the only people that sell this. You're not going to be able to find this at a lot of feed stores because I have to have an FDA license in order to carry this and sell this, and I have to track things, but you can find it at enough places. You can get it locally. And again, if you can't, just hop on Foundation Feed and get a script from your vet and do it that way. So the next thing that I want to talk about, this is you sheep folks, is, and we see this a lot, we see people, there is a well-supported case for shearing twice a year. We shear our animals in the springtime. We shear our animals in the fall. A lot of people think, well, if I shear cold, the problems, there's a lot of evidence to support that shearing going into the fall, even in cold, wet, harsh environments, as long as you're going to have those animals where they can get under shelter, is very, very helpful to them. One thing that I want you to consider with that wool is that wool carries a lot of moisture. So if you full coat sheep that has tons and tons of wool, what they're going to do is they're going to go outside, they're going to get snow, rain, whatever, going to bring it back into the barn, and your condensation and moisture inside the barn. We see this over and over and over. We offer shearing here on the Linessa farms twice a year, where people can bring their sheep here, and it's $7 a head, and that includes shearing and hoof trim. And most of our customers that start with us start off in the spring, and they're like, I'm not doing it in the fall. And then once they go through one lambing season without shearing, they're like, I'm never doing that again, because by the time they bring that sheep back to us in the spring, they are nasty. If you're comfortable with shearing in the fall for whatever reason, you need to at least perform what we call crutching, and that is where for sanitary reasons, you're going to take the wool off the back end of the ewe, and you're going to clean the wool off the side, actually get to the teats and nurse appropriately, and also to keep the back end clean during the lambing process. So we highly advise it. There's other anecdotal evidence to support that. The babies tend to have a little bit more vigor. They develop more brown fat. You can get in the deep weed, but I just wanted to touch on that and just say shearing twice a year, very warranted and very appropriate. The next point, lambing and kidding pens. So some people do this and some people don't. We personally really, really good results with this. So we're a kidding pen. Some of you may have seen, or a kidding jug. So we let our does and our ewes have their babies out in out in general population. They have enough to move around and get comfortable and have those. So if you can imagine, we're going to have all of our pregnant moms in one area. As they start having their babies, we allow them to have their babies out in general population. Once they have those babies, we'll take the babies and we'll take the mom, and we will put them in a lambing or a kidding jug, and that is their own pen that consists of, it has feed for mom, it has quality hay for mom, it has good quality feed for mom, it has plenty of water from it. We can add some electrolytes to, and it has a single heat lamp, a good heat lamp, not the barn burner heat lamps, the good heat from Premier that are completely enclosed in, and we keep them in there for 24 hours. Now, some of our moms are really, really good, and some of our moms not so good. And you're going to find, that mothering instinct is going to be better with some, it's going to be less good with some, and it can take them a little bit of time. So we put the baby and mom in there, and we kind of watch them and we see how they do. And then after about 48 hours, once we feel they're ready, we let them out, and they go back out into general population, and they seem to do very, very. At this point, mom and baby are bonded to one another, and we feel comfortable in them out, and we don't have too much worries about things going awry. If 30, 40 moms with babies, things can get a little bit goofy. They can get separated from one another. It's hard to. Our main concern also is we want to make sure that those babies are getting the colostrum. Colostrum is it's not a preference. It is a necessity. The babies have to have colostrum, have to have it within the first colostrum. Chances of them surviving is extremely low. Here's what you need to know about colostrum. that baby is wired and set up to absorb colostrum only within the first 24 hours. So colostrum has a lot of what we call immunoglobulins. It has a lot of antibodies in it that are a little bit larger and a little bit more sensitive to other gut bacteria, to acidity and that. And what's really, really cool about lambs and kids is for that first 24-hour window, their pH and their gut and everything is just right to allow them to absorb those antibodies from their mom's colostrum. After 24 hours, that system breaking. If you give a baby colostrum after that 24-hour, they can't absorb correctly, and it goes right through their digestive system. So if you've a window of time of giving them colostrum and they don't get it within 24 hours, you are in big trouble. And that is, you can give regular colostrum off their mom. You can go to the store and buy colostrum, which isn't as good, but it's still, most of that is made with cow colostrum. The question we get asked is, okay, I missed the window. Something happened. Neighbor down the street knocks on your door and is like, oh, we had this lamb 2 days ago, and I don't think it got any colostrum. What do we do? There is a product that you kidding that is an injection. It is called Shield, and you can buy this product. You can buy Premier. It's the only place that I know that actually carries it, and it is pricey, and it has to be sent refrigerated via airmail. But if you miss that window, you can actually give these babies an injection, which will provide them with the antibiotics that they need in order to survive. Here's the no kidding thing. When in doubt, tube them. So here's what the pros do. And I don't care if you like it or if you don't, I'm just here information. And here's the information. Here's what the pros do. When I go to guys animals for show and they have a barn of 40 to 50 ewes or does that are having babies all in the period of like 2 days, when a doe or a ewe has a baby, they go over to that pen, they pull out both of those babies, they milk mom completely on both sides, all of her colostrum. They split that colostrum in half and they tube one baby with half of that colostrum and they tube the other baby. When I say tube, I mean oral gastric tube. They stick that tube in their mouth, stomach. They give half the colostrum to one, half of the colostrum to the other. They set them down in there and they walk away. And people say, well, why in the world would do this? Well, they do this for a couple reasons. One, that baby is going to survive for at least another 6 hours before they have to worry about them because it's gotten all the nutrition. Now they don't have to worry about, did that baby get the colostrum? Because if you've been raising animals for a while, you've seen this yourself. The first baby's born, it's strong, it gets up, it starts nursing, and then maybe the second baby comes out, but it's like an hour later or a half an hour later, and then by the time it with the other one to get, one got more colostrum than the other, and the reality is they're both probably going to get enough colostrum, but hey, this way they don't have to worry about it. And when these guys and gals that are raised and they've done artificial insemination or they've done cedars or whatever, and they're having, no kidding, 40 ewes or 100 or whatever, and they're all having babies at one time, they don't have time to dote over one baby that's having a problem or one mom that's having a problem, because meanwhile, there's 4 more that are having problems. So they simply milk them out and they tube them, and you're good to go there. So again, colostrum within 24 hours, and when in doubt, tube them. So we're going to talk here in a second about, but first I wanted to touch bases here, and I wanted to about this. So, hey Tim, I just got my Livestock Guardian. Any tips, thoughts, or advice? So the more you're going to be. Now, dogs can respond to new environments in different ways, depending on the age of the dog and depending on the breed of the dog. Some dogs feel intimidated by the new livestock, and so they act aggressive when they're really just insecure. And you've probably experienced this with dogs before where, they act really tough, but the reality is that they're just scared. So what we like to see happen with puppies is we like you to put them out there with the animals, but we like them to be in a secure, safe environment to where the animals can't hurt them and they can't get to the animals. They can see each other, they can smell each other, they can get used to each other, but they can't physically get to one another. So that's the main point that we want you to do. We also want you to socialize these animals. Some people get in this mindset where they're like, oh, I'm not going to socialize them. I don't have anything to do with them. You know, we don't do that. We socialize our dogs a lot to people, and they do really well. We run, in this case, this individual has Great Pyrenees and mix, and that's a great mix to have a lot of luck with. I know probably more about these than I do about others. We have had Commodores in the past that we raised, but overly most of the time, we don't see many problems with the GPs. They tend to have a more kind of cool mindset. They kind of are more laid back. The Commodores are a little bit more aggressive, but the main thing we like you to see you with that baby is get it to where it can see them, they can see it, but it's a little bit protected, and then kind of ease them into one another supervised. Your GP, your Great Pyrenees, and your Anatolian start off, and they're going to be really quiet, and then they're going to hit the 6-month phase, just bark and bark and bark and bark and bark. And then once they do about a year, they're going to kind of settle back down to where they're not going to do it as much. So congratulations, they're great dogs. I think you're going to love them. For those of you babies, congratulations to you. You're going to love them. The one stepping off point here that I will tell you that I want all of you to remember is that again, we want to talk about what's in every individual's feed. Some can have and some. In this case, when it comes to dog food, a lot of dog food is high in copper. So you want to make sure that you keep those sheep and even goats away from dog food, because it can give them copper toxicity. And this falls in line with a lot of other feeds that we give as well, right? So some of the strong coccidians out there, Bovatec, Rumensin, Decox, things like that. Some of these medications can be lethal to camelids and horses. So some of these medications you really need to pay attention to your sheep and goats, because if you've got a horse, or if you've got an alpaca, or if you've got a llama or something like that, they can get into medicated feed for these animals and get into it, and it can kill them. We had one of our farm parties, some came over, they got in, this is an individual, an adult, got into our dog feed and was feeding dog feed to our sheep and killed a very expensive ram. Just fed this ram dog food, and it killed him. So didn't kill him right away, but a few days. It took us a while to figure out what the heck happened, but essentially copper toxicity, because you got to keep an eye on your kids, visitors, things like that. It's all very important. So just something for you to keep in mind. That was a great question. Thank you. And we do have someone coming on to talk to us soon, raises livestock guardian dogs and trains livestock guardian dogs, and they're going to be one of our weekly live streams. So I look forward to that. So how early can the moms to get the colostrum? So at birth is the best time to do it. Moms are going to go through hormonal changes. Milk is going to come in. Some moms, you'll find that the milk comes in really early. Some moms that you'll find that the milk comes in a little bit late. But generally speaking, hormones that are released in the body that help the moms go through the birthing process, the dilation process, the contractions and things like that, are going to also have the hormones that are going to cause them to drop their milk. Now, there are some cases a little bit early for various reasons, and that can be that mom went into labor early due to trauma or due to some kind of issues. And in that case, if you have a mom that did not dilate and they had to be given drugs to cause them to dilate, which would probably kind of be out of your wheelhouse, we can give epinephrine to these does and ewes that will cause them to dilate. If that was the case, we would have to give them an injection of another hormone, which will cause their, and to help them is Pitocin, which will help cause their milk to come in and help their contractions and things like that. So generally speaking, though, if you're going to milk them out, you're going to want to wait time that the babies have been delivered. There's some really handy tools out there that you can buy online. You can go on Premier. They have a really cool one that you put up to the teat and it forms a suction. You can pump it with your hand and it'll actually pull the milk out. You can do as simple as taking a 60 milliliter syringe, cutting the end off of it where the needle attaches, pull the plunger out, flip that over and put the plunger back in it, and then just stick the original blunt end up against the teat, pull back on the plunger, and the milk will just come right out. And I'll make a video on that. I know it's kind of confusing. Buy these $100 fancies, or you can buy a 60 milliliter syringe and do it yourself that way. So, yeah, we got a comment on here that says, tubing is an intimidating process. Absolutely, I agree. Tubing is an intimidating process. If you're going to do this, I want you to learn how. It is not fun, but once you do it once and you kind of get your feet underneath you, you're going to find that it's not that difficult, and you're going to save lives by learning how to intubate. We're talking about oral intubation, OG, so oral gastric tubing, not think intubation like it's going into the lungs. So if I tube this animal, I don't want it to go into their lungs and pour fluid down and I'm going to kill them. Yeah, and we completely understand that. I will tell you that the animal is designed in order for this tube to go down their throat and into their stomach. Generally speaking, it works. Even in the case where we're doing this in a hospital setting and we're going up through a patient's nose and we're going down into like you almost can't get it in their lungs if you want to. Intubating a patient, getting a patient intubated to where you're artificially breathing for them is actually quite difficult. You have to get the patient in a weird position to do it. So it's easier for you to do than you would think. So I think you'll be and how well that works. So you said, let you know what ended up getting goat versus sheep. We got 2 Dorper cross ewes and Dorper ram. Awesome. Very excited for you. Thank you for letting us know. That's great. All right, let's see. Can you talk about inappropriate goat development? I took the goat to the vet, room and knowledgeable. So, with any mammals, you're going to run into every once in a while, you're going to run into where they're going to bag out. You can find this with cats. It's a something to have to let them rest, and normally they'll run through and it'll go down on its own, like a false pregnancy, and it's pretty rare. We don't worry too much about inappropriate lactation. If you're into inappropriate lactation, you may be overexposing this animal to artificial estrogens. Wow, we could get into a whole special about that. What I want you to know is, generally speaking, if you pull the animal off of grain, if you put them on hay that is mostly grass and doesn't have a lot of leaves in it, if you put them on crummy nutrition for about a week or so, it'll go away on its own. Basically, think the process that we go through when we're trying to dry out a ewe or a doe, when we're getting them youngsters. And if you do happen to run across this, which is really, really rare, wow, I've seen this happen twice over my lifetime. If you do see it, just treat them as you normally would to dry an animal out. You obviously want to watch them for mastitis, and there's other drugs that you can give. Dexamethasone, which will help dry them out as well. Something for your dexamethasone, some people would give penicillin. Whew, man, I've seen massive doses of penicillin before. I know Dr. Kennedy from Pipestone back in the day, for mastitis, he would give dexamethasone, 2 mLs dexamethasone and 1 ml per 10 pounds of body weight of penicillin to treat mastitis, which I know sounds like a huge dose, but they found that's what worked. So, and we'll get a little bit more into mastitis here. So talking about feeding, talking about colostrum, if we want to talk about bottle, if you find yourself in a situation where you have to bottle feed, and again, we've told you this once, I'll tell you this a million times. There's two things that I want you to remember. One, do not ever purposely make a bottle baby. It is not worth it. It is going to be traumatic to the mother. It's going to cause problems with the mother. You're going to set her up for things like mastitis, and it's going to be traumatic to the baby. And the baby's not going to be healthy as they would be. Now, that's my opinion, and this is my channel, and I'm just going to give you my opinion. I know some of you that, but I'm just giving it to you. You're not going to get a deal by getting a bottle baby. I see all the time online, people are like looking for a bottle baby, and they're mean that animal's not designed to be. It's not a dog. It's not a cat. It does not belong in your house. It's not going to be as healthy getting bottle fed. It is not going to be as mentally healthy by now with other animals of it. So there's a whole slew of things that you are doing bad from just an animal husbandry standpoint. Then you need to really look at it. With that being said, there's going to be times that you're going to have to bottle feed these babies. If on our website, if you go to linessafarms.com, you go to the upper right-hand corner, you go to downloads, we have formula recipes written out that will tell you how to make your own formula. I highly advise you make your formula out of whole cow's milk plus added fat. Whole cow's milk alone doesn't have enough fat in it to support. We've got a breakdown on our website that'll show you for lambs, it'll show you for goats, and it'll show you for like high fat goats, like a Nigerian dwarf, mixing in certain amounts of fat. And I'm telling you right now, in this for years and years and years and years and years, the cow's milk will not cause them to scour nearly not even in the same bulk by powdered milk. And I've used top-notch, the best dry powdered milk I can find, and we almost never get scours from cow's milk. The babies do a lot better on it. It's just easier on them. It's easier on you. So take that as you will, but we would highly advise, feeding them real milk. Now, keeping them outside is the other thing. A lot of times people get in this mindset where, hey, I've got an animal. It's a bottle baby now, therefore it needs to live honest. It really stinks getting up in the middle of the night and going out and bottle feeding the babies. When you first have these, there's a general, people will ask us, they're like, well, how much do I feed them? There's a general rule of thumb when it comes to feeding your babies. I'm going to deviate a little bit from this, but if you just want to do general rule of thumb, look at it this way. 4 ounces every 4 hours, slowly progress to 6 ounces every 6, 10 ounces every 10, to 12 ounces every 12. And then you're going to coast. Once you get to 12 ounces every 12, you're going to coast. You need to try to set this orphan up for success as fast as you humanly can. And setting them up for success as fast as you can is going to involve this. Number one, you need to keep them outside, and you need to keep them around the other so they can learn how to be a lamb, or they can learn how to be a goat kid. Grain and hay from the beginning of their life. They need to have free access to that, because our goal is, come 6 weeks, come hell or high water, that animal will be weaned. If you can wean them at 4 weeks, even better. But the younger you can wean these animals, the better life expectancy I have. As soon as you cross over the threshold of 6, where you're still bottle feeding this baby, from abomasum, bloat increases substantially, exponentially, and you will have babies that are being bottle fed up to their 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and you will go out there and they will be deader than a doornail. And the reason is because you fed them the bottle for too long and they got abomasum, killed them. I'm not inventing this. This isn't my opinion. They've done plenty of studies on this. This is what the vets say. Do not do it. You want to wean this baby as early as possible. You want them drinking water, eating hay, going after creep feed as early as possible. It is dangerous. We have bottle babies every year. We can't help but have some bottle babies every year. We've gotten much better at grafting, but you can't avoid telling you, don't go out looking for it. And if you do find yourself in that situation, you really need to do your best to keep them outside. They do not belong in your house. You're going to create all kinds of by doing that. I get it. It's cool. You get cool, social media pics and things like that. But get a puppy, get a kitten. If you want to go that route, find something else to do it with. Bad animal husbandry practices. If you have babies on your farm, we picked this up from Dr. Kennedy from Pipestone, and we have done this for years. I have never one time have ever had a case of like sore joints of naval ill. If you've ever seen naval ill and the destruction that this does to joints, specifically the front shoulders and front knees of goats and lambs, it is naval ill is no kidding. It is a really bad. Essentially what happens is when he's born, that baby gets an infection that's allowed to enter through the umbilicus. It gets into the system, it gets into their body, and it causes all kinds. If they get naval ill to the point that it causes damage to their joints, they will have that damage to their joints forever. They will never completely recover from that. What is the treatment for naval ill prevention? The treatment for naval ill prevention is been to disinfect the navel when they're born. That's why we talk about iodine, and you've seen this over and over and over where we dip the navels in iodine. When I was a kid, that's what we did. You get them as soon as they were born, you would dip the navel in iodine. The problem with iodine is unless it's kept in a closed, it loses its potency really, really, really fast. So I will tell you right now, and you're probably not going to like me, but got an open bottle of iodine, or if you got an iodine cup out in your garage or out in your barn that's been sitting for 3 years or 6 months or whatever, we'll go outside and throw it in the trash because it has lost all of its potency and it is not any good anymore. Antiseptic spray is okay, but the best thing to do is to do a combination of the spray on the navel and we get a shot. So when every single baby is born on our farm, they get a single subcutaneous injection, which consists of 1 milliliter of aqueous penicillin and 1 milliliter of CDT vaccine. We mix them together, so it's a 2 milliliter shot. It consists of 1 milliliter of penicillin and 1 milliliter of CDT. Mix it up, give a cutaneous shot over the ribs, and we have gotten a case of naval ill on any of our babies. Now, again, this is not me like inventing this. I didn't just come up with this. This comes direct Pipestone Veterinary Services. They've been doing this for years. Lots of it. It's fine. You don't have to do it. I'm just going through my list tonight. I'm just trying to help you guys out. So something that I want you to consider. All right, we have a question really quick. So let's see what we got here. I have a sheepdog. I like how it's in quotes. A bottle lamb who thinks he's a dog. Yes. He has to go to the freezer. No respect for humans. Dangerous. It's puberty. Never trust an intact ram. Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad that you brought that up. We have a video on YouTube, which a lot of probably seen, where we talk about aggressive rams and aggressive bucks, and how you're absolutely right. The more you handle these animals, the more aggressive they become. And we've talked about this in the past about how it's really hard because, really the more outgoing babies, the more outgoing lambs and kids are generally going to be your male. They're a little bit more curious. They come up, and really the funnest one, because they'll come up to you and they'll be rubbing their head on you. We've had them ramming us at 4 days old. They're up there bouncing against your leg, and you kind of laugh and you chuckle. But the reality is he's already new aggressive behavior. And it's going to get amplified more. And most of the herds and flocks, we just handle our males. We handle them just as much as we absolutely have to. And the rest of the time, you just leave them alone. We just treat them like they don't exist. And it's hard because you love these animals and they're your animals and you want to take good care of them, but you just can't. You can't socialize it out of them, you handle it out of them. The more you try to socialize rams and bucks, the more you handle them, the worse their behavior problems become. The best thing you can do is treat them as the dangerous animal that they are. I don't want you leaving your kids around them. I don't want you, taking them for granted. I've seen many come in getting knee surgery. Laid out. I think interview with Aaron Jennings, he said that he woke up on his barn floor looking at from a ram that was most of the time nice. It's just not worth it. I have been hit. If you've never been hit, it is a borderline religious experience. I have been hit by a ram before, by a couple 100-pound ram from not that far, and just completely laid me out. It is scary how much power these animals have. So you have to show them respect, and you have to take care of them. And as our friend here said, he has dental work. He had to have dental work. It's bad. You just don't want to do it. And that's what we were talking about, catching those animals too. Beginning of this program tonight, get up behind them, grab them by the leg, and get a handle on them without getting them all worked up. Getting them corralled, getting in front of them and kneeling down with your arm on you, they're not going to stop for you. Getting your face down at their level is never a good idea, because they will just clean your clock, and won't think twice about it. So very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. The next thing I want to talk about is they don't need heat all the time. And I get this, it's cold outside and you're like, they're little and they need heat. They don't need heat all the time, and if you close up your barn airtight and you turn the heaters on, the only thing you're going to end up with is pneumonia, and all of your sheep and goats are going to be too winter long. They handle some cold. Am I telling you if it's 20 below zero outside that you just need to let them freeze to death? No. Do you need 15 heat lamps going? No. Normally in our creep area, we'll have one or two heat lamps that are going that are on a thermocube, which is a plug that you can get that has a thermostat in it that you can plug into your AC outlet. And if it gets, they have them that kick on freezing. They have them for various degrees. You can get a thermocube that'll kick on at 5 degrees and it'll come on. If it's 35 degrees outside, we do not have heat lamps on. We have heat lamps on here when we're getting into minus, when we're getting into the minus digits, that's when we will turn on a heat lamp. Or but overall, heat lamps just aren't that we do all the time. If they've got good bedding and they got a good mama, they don't need. So please keep that in mind. Try to bundle your cares together, and I wanted to talk with you a little. You can find ways to make your job a lot easier. Sometimes processing these babies can be overwhelming. We have a lot of things that we have to do. We have to tag their ears. We have to do our health checks. We have to give them vaccinations. We have to dock tails. We have to, castrate. There's all kinds of things that it's easier if you try. There's a few tips and tricks that you can do to try to bundle their cares together. Now, with the lambs and the goat kids, what we find is the easiest thing to do is we processing all at one time. First, you can do it. You can go ahead and you can dock the tails and you can tag the ears. The other thing that I want you to consider is how you tag the ears. I don't care if you have 5 animals, you have 50. I think it's important to tag their ears, because if today you only have 2, but next you may have 20, you don't know. Go ahead and tag them. Here's another thing that I want you to consider with tagging. Get a different color every year. That way, at a glance, you look out at your flock or your herd and you can say, the animal was born in 2020. I know because it has blue tag. That animal was born in 2021. When you're having customers come to your farm and you're showing them that you have, your stuff together, and you're showing them that you're a well-man, for one, people like that. And the other thing is, it just makes it easier. People are like, well, what is that? Is that a boy or a girl? You can, because you're going to tag in the right ear if it's a girl, you're going to tag in the left ear a boy. You're going to tag 1 year one color, 1 year another. Feet away, you can look at an animal. You may not know specifically who it is, but you'll be able to say that's a 2022 model and that's a male, or that's a 2021 model and that's a female. Different colors and different tagging locations go a long way. Now, some breeds like a La Mancha, you don't have ears, but then we're getting in the deep weeds of things. For most, tagging them, it's just going to pay you dividends. Then when you're filling out your health records, you can simply put the information based off of their number, and it's much, much easier for you to track. So bundle your cares and take some time to think about tagging. It dividends in the long. Castration. I get a lot of questions about castration. A lot of the ethnic markets do not want their animals to be castrated. The other thing is really, and we can argue, and this is my opinion, up to about a year of life, I can't taste the difference when it comes to castrated or non-males. I have one of my very best customers that buys from me all the time, Milan. Milan always told me, he said, I want females. If I can't have females, I want castrated males. If I can't have castrated males, I'll reluctantly maybe try an intact male. This year I told him, I said, look, Milan, I've got 2 6-month-old males that are fantastic. They're intact. Take them, try them. If you don't like it, I'll refund your money. He took them. He had never actually eaten any before. He'd just been told this his whole life. He tried it. I couldn't tell the difference. So here's what I'll tell you on our farm how we do things. I do not castrate males ever unless my customer wants them castrated. That is to say, I know they're going to go for show. They're going to be a 4-H lamb or a show lamb or a market wether or a market kid. I don't castrate that. Point me doing it. It messes up their feed conversion ratio. It knocks them back for a couple weeks. As soon as you put on their testicles, it's going to knock them back for a few weeks before they can get their feet underneath them again and they start eating normal again and acting normal. And then it's going to goof up their hormones to the point that they're going to start packing on a lot more fat than they are lean muscle. It's a disaster. They will grow perfectly well with their testicles in place. The females will grow like females. The males will grow like males. I'm getting rid of most of my animals once they hit my weight, which is going to be between about 60 and 100 pounds, depending on what we want. There's no need for me to castrate them. I have not seen any difference in my market prices that I've gotten being castrating or castrating. And I don't know how to castrate. We do it with our 4-H lambs and our 4-H goats, and we do it with our customers that want them done. But overall, I don't waste my time with castrating. That's what works for my farm. You have to see what works for your farm. If you call your local sale barn and simply ask them, say, this is where I'm at. I have intact males, castrating them or not, and they will let you know. So just something that you want to consider. I had 4 pages of ideas I was going to guys about tonight, and we just made it through 1, and we're at 50 minutes. So talked about castration. If I am going to castrate my lambs or my goat kids, I usually wait until a little bit longer. I usually wait with my lamb, wait until 6 weeks. They're easier to get. I would really, really love to be able to castrate my lambs when I dock the ears. The problem is it's so difficult to be able to get both testicles and scrotum into that band. Cryptic, they're up in. I usually just end up waiting until 6 weeks of life. Goat, on the other hand, completely different story. There is good hard evidence to support that castrating a goat too early can increase instances of urinary calculi. And with that being said, generally speaking, with our goats, we will wait, no kidding, almost as long as we can. We'll wait until I can just barely get the band around them and do it then. Again, not a fan of it. I don't like castrating. I do very little castrating. And there's other methods that you can use with specialized tools that will help us castration, which is a little bit in depth, but we're going to make a video about that hopefully soon, so you'll be able to see. Start treating your ewes and your does for coccidia before they have their babies. We've been over this a lot, right? 2 main things. What are the 2 main culprits that are going to prevent appropriate growth and health on your farm? parasites and coccidia, without a doubt, the top two, without a doubt, these and very, very easy to get your head and your hands around. The number one way to treat, we're not going to get into parasites because we've beat this horse to death. But again, coccidia, right? Treating for coccidia, I want you to start thinking about coccidia and treating your used dose for coccidia 30 days prior to lambing and kidding. You need to get a handle on coccidia and get that coccidia load down before those babies are born and they're exposed to that coccidia. Raising your animals on pasture is not an appropriate excuse for not treating your animals for coccidia, not giving them minerals. You know, I see there's this mental break and people are like, well, if I raise them in dry lot, I'm going to give them grain and I'm going to give them do this and I'm going to do that. And then if I go on pasture, I'm not going to give them any. No. You can raise a grass-fed animal. You can still raise an animal on pasture and still treat them for coccidia and give them good mineral and vitamin nutrition. Plenty of good free choice vitamins and minerals out there that contain medication for coccidia that you can give them all in one. We sell it on Foundation Feed. If we sell it, people sell it. It's not that hard to get your hands on. You can buy it. You can go out there. You offer them their free choice mineral. It has the medication in it. And this way they're good and clean for those babies are born. It's going to help bridge that gap long event problems later on down the line. Again, without a doubt, talk to your vet about this. They will tell you the same thing. If you can control parasites and you can control coccidia, whether you're running them on dry lot, whether you're running them on pasture, grain, no grain, fill in the blank, you are going to see substantial increases in growth rate and overall health. Just unbelievable changes in their overall growth. And a lot of farms out there are running around. They don't have their minds wrapped around coccidia yet. And they're running around with the subclinical levels of coccidia on their farm that are destroying their growth potential. You're feeding these animals really, really well, and they're just not growing appropriately because they're competing with these parasites that they have in their body. So you absolutely have to get on top of that. And again, we want to start treating the using dose 30 days prior. Here's a little tip for you, a little trick for you. When you're getting we run our animals on free choice creep. I am a huge fan of free choice creep for our kids and for our lambs just to get them going. We've tried it both ways. We've tried just on free choice creep is what works well for us. If you're trying to get an animal, a baby, to get started on creep feed and they don't want to do it, the easiest way that you can do this is you can get soybean meal. Soybean meal is very, very fine. It looks like cornmeal, and you can just place a little pile in the corners of their feeder, and they will generally go after that soybean meal first before they really start getting to the pellets or mini pellets or texturized feed or whatever. But a lot of the show folks will utilize soybean meal to get their littles, what we refer to as their littles, their baby lambs or their baby kids, started on creep feed. For some reason, we've seen littles go after it as young as 7 days of age. So soybean meal is a great way to do that. Each creep needs to have its own supply of water, its own supply of hay. It needs to be their own little, it's like the club, right? It's like the club for the babies. Like they can get in, but nobody else can. You need to have your creep areas secure to where your adults can't get in. You need to have your creep gate. You need to have it set up so they can't jump in there. They can't force their way in there. Only the littles can get in there. They can eat, they can chill, they can relax. You put up a little heat lamp in there for them. You get it nice and cushy. You get their feed, you got their hay, you got they're away from the adults, and they don't have to compete with them for their food or for their nutrition. So definitely something to look into. So Josh asked a really good question here. This is a really good question. Do we need to rotate different coccidia meds? Scientific evidence says yes. So I'm not going to argue with that. There are coccidia medications that help lower the ability of the coccidia to reproduce. So what are the big coccidia medications that we look at? We look at Bovatec, we look at Rumensin, we look at Decox. These are the big ones. Which one do I like the best? I have to say probably off the cuff, I'm going to say Bovatec. I like the fact that it's got some antibiotic properties along with the anti-coccidia properties as well. Decox is really good. Some of these medications are approved for sheep, some of them are approved for goats, some of them are approved for, I want to say off the top of my head that Bovatec is approved for sheep and cattle or goats. I believe Decox is approved for all of them. So these preventative medications, these are not therapeutic medications. That is to say, if you have an animal coccidiosis, and these get interchanged a lot too, right? Like people will say coccidia, but they mean to say coccidiosis. People will say coccidiosis, but they mean to say coccidia, which is the protozoa itself. It's a single-celled organism. It gets in there. It's going to tear up the intestinal lining, things like that. Then you get infection process where they've got the inflammation, they've got the infection, they're getting the bloody scar. That is coccidiosis. So the coccidia cause coccidiosis. We're treating coccidia with Bovatec, Rumensin, Decox. We're treating coccidiosis with different medications. This is where the Corid comes into place. This is where the Totralazole comes into place. There is no better medication on the market today. I challenge anyone to find a better medication. If you find the research to show anything better than Totralazole, I will send you a free t-shirt. It's not out there. I have read so much information on therapy treatments for coccidias, from to sulfameds, Totralazole, and nothing works as good as Totralazole. Nothing. Totralazole, shown through clinical trials, single dose of 1 milliliter per every 5 pounds of body weight will treat an animal very, very well. If they're like on death's door, you can treat 1 milliliter per 3 pounds of body weight, and they said that will almost eliminate any coccidia that they have in their system at all. And it works really good because it allows the coccidia to sit in the system long enough that the animal develops a natural immunity to it. But to answer your in a very long-winded fashion, each one of these medications do have the propensity for resistance to. So if you're rotating these coccidia medications, maybe this season we want to use Bovatec, but next season we want to use Decox. Maybe the next time we want to use, and you work with your vet, you work with your feed provider, and you find out what works best for you, work better than others. And with Totralazole, they show that if over a long period of time of giving it over and over and over, if you can afford it, can develop resistance to it. So that's the main hang of Totralazole. If Totralazole said, why isn't everybody using it? One, it's hard to find. Two, it's super expensive. We got so irritated with it here at Linessa Farms that we went as far as to ourselves under our own house brand. If you go to, you'll see we have, I don't have a bottle of it here, but it's called Blackout 5, and it's 5% Totralazole. Just to put it into perspective for you, we sell a 400 milliliter bottle for $130, and the cheapest that you can find, like hands down on the internet, we have the cheapest price that you can find. If there's a cheaper price out there, I don't know about it. Feel free to look. But we've had individuals call us, and we've used it ourselves, to where you have an animal on death's door with coccidiosis. They give it to them, and the next day they're cleared up. I'm not saying they're going to, it's like not this miraculous thing, like they're just all of a sudden better. I'm saying it clears out the coccidia. And scientific evidence supports this. Overseas, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, this medication, Totralazole, is actually known as Baycox. And a lot of the big time providers are actually dosing their animals at 30, 60, and 90 days just to keep the coccidia out of them. The growth potential, what's the word I'm looking for? The growth conversion ratio they've seen is phenomenal. I don't know if 90 days, because I said, I don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm leading to that resistance. We've seen farms destroy good medications over the years with doing exactly what you're talking about, right? We saw it with the chemical wormers. When we have a great medication like Totralazil, we don't want to wreck that too. So I think you always need to exercise caution to control these things naturally before you move on to, just burning down the farm with medications and things like that. So, let's see what we got here. Another message. You give me some advice, and I've had hair sheep for nearly 20 years. Always be ready to learn. Absolutely. I learn new stuff every day. And sometimes it's hard, right? You're like, the way I was raised, I was raised by a farmer that was kind of took me under his wing. And he had Cordale sheep. He had over 100 Cordale sheep. And I learned like a lot of old school ways to do things. And then as I got older and I learned more, I started learning how to read scientific literature and things like that. And I get exposed to new stuff and I meet people that are like, man, I did this or I did that, and it works for me. Plus there's new all the time, right? So we didn't get a chance to get it tonight, but I'll leave you on this note is I look at Multimin 90. Again, I'm not a vet. This is off-label use, so do with this information what you will. But there's a drug out there called Multimin 90. Multimin 90 is used for cattle. It is injectable copper, zinc, manganese. You can give it to goats. Well, for how long have we been giving these oral boluses of the copper oxide particles? That's a disaster. If you want to have some fun, try to give a bolus to a goat, and I swear they can spit these things up. That bolus can be halfway down their throat, and they can just hack it out. It'll go shooting out there. It is, oh my goodness, it'll drive you nuts. So found this drug that people started using off-label. They're like, it's injector. My goats need copper. I can try it. People have been having fantastic results with this. 1 milliliter subcutaneous injection of Multi-D given under the skin, size adult goat. People are injecting their goats once to possibly twice a year, and it has corrected all of the copper deficiencies. Now, there's always caveats to this, right? You feed them copper. You can't give them copper mineral, copper feed if you're going to be chasing them with a needle and giving them a copper injection. They will get copper overload. You'll get into copper toxicity and you will kill them. So, there's always, you change one, what happens? Well, I changed one thing. Now I got to change up. You got to be smart about this. Then what happens? That's one of these cases where, yes, you can switch to this injectable copper. Yes, it works really, really well, but you have to be willing to change the other things on your farm as well. You can't let these things get away from you. So that's recognized. The other thing about the Multimin 90 is it has to be, it's a written prescription from your vet. So you just go out and pick this up off the shelf and use it. When in doubt, you have to talk to your vet. I can tell you what I do here on my farm. I can tell you what works here on my farm, but there's always other considerations that are in play that I might not be able to communicate with you. And that's where, out of respect for your animals and for yourself and working with your veterinarian, you have to look at these things in a big picture. I can give you ideas, but these ideas come with caveats. So I hope that makes sense. April said everyone hit the like button. I appreciate that, April. Everyone hit the like button. If you don't subscribe to our channel, please do. YouTube cares a whole lot about subscriptions. They change their mind all the time about what they like and what they don't like, but hit the like button. I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. I just enjoy doing this. I enjoy visiting with you. But I do appreciate that. Thank you, April. All right. One more question here. I had a goat that had a stomach ache. I gave her milk of magnesia and then gave her probiotics, and with stomachs, just like other animals get upset stomachs, just like we get upset stomachs, you can treat most goats with most goats and lambs with over-the-counter medications. You can treat them with Pepto. You can treat them with kaolin. You can treat them with these coating substances because it's going to coat the lining of the stomach and it's going to help them to feel better. Now, another tip and another trick that we use here on our farm. Again, right, wrong, or indifferent. Here's what it is. Actinomycin, TAM, the red stuff, they call it scour halt. We give this to our animals. If our animal gets scours, if we have and it scours, if it's a youngster, they're going to get 5 milliliters once every 24 hours, regardless. They get it, they get the Spectam. You'll normally see when they first start eating grain, and we expect them to get it. It soothes, it coats, and wipes it out. If we get an adult, we give them 15 milliliters. You can give kaolin. You can give activated clay. It works really well, too. The main thing that I want you to remember is I want you to keep them away from any what we call anticholinergic medication. So this would be anticholinergic medications, and I always lose this one. Imodium. Imodium is an anticholinergic medication, and what an anticholinergic medication does is it actually stops or slows down what we call the well, I won't get into the deep weeds of the way this works, but basically you have this motility, this movement that's constantly happening in the muscles of your internal lining, and it helps get poop through the system and out. When you take an anticholinergic medication, it actually stops this motility, this gastric motility, and it halts it. And so the problem, if you have a sheep or you have a goat or you have a kid or you have a lamb that has a bug like E. coli and you actually medication and it stopped, you're going to run into a lot of problems, and it can kill them. So you don't ever want to give an anticholinergic medication like Imodium to your animals. So something that you need to keep in mind. So I think that's a good stopping point for today. I really appreciate visiting with you guys. We've got some really cool up. We've got Aaron Jennings is coming back. We're doing this Friday on his farm. We have a goat guy that we're going to go out and see. So lots and lots of good stuff coming up. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let us know. Thank you very much for visiting us tonight and for watching the video. I greatly appreciate it. I am Tim from Linessa Farms Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining me again today. Seeing all of you again